All right. Well, good morning to everybody. Coffee cheers. No, I'm not wearing makeup, so you get to see my scarry face. I told you guys this is one of those raw live streams where you don't get me any way. But, anyways, I find certain things amusing in Satan's world. You gotta laugh to keep from crying. Anybody ever hear that saying? You gotta laugh to keep from crying, right? And sometimes laughing comes in the form of certain amusements for everybody. For me, it's when grifters, social chameleons, and all the sellouts kind of get their wake up call, their fall from grace or disgrace because they weren't graceful even when they were up. They just appeared that way, right? Angels of light, right? Demons, they're angels of darkness posing as angels of light. And there's a lot of humans that masquerade the same way. And a lot of people, I talk to different people that follow the content, and it's like, you and Candace Owens, you guys should work together. You should do this. In the beginning, when I first learned about Candace Owens, right? Because she's very manipulating, right? And, I think when you're somebody who's kind of looking at politics and you have a contrarian, position, and you've just kind of been around the echo chamber of thought, you tend, when you branch out, especially if the face looks like yours, and they have conviction about a position, you tend to want to give them, at least a chance and listen to them. So that's what I did with Candace Owens, right? So in the beginning, I bought her book, right? And I even looked into Blexit out here in Detroit. I didn't really see too much going on. And so, I thought that she was somebody that, had some common sense, but I realized, and it was the same way with Kevin Samuels, where these people are, sort of pivoting, bouncing into echo chambers of thought, appeasing different types of audiences and echo chambers. So they don't have like one set of convictions that they're really running on. They're really running on whatever's popular. And that's kind of what I look at Candace Owens. She just jumps on whatever is popular, whatever has a big audience. And so she has been accused, and I have been one of those people who have observed the fact that she's a bit of a conversation leech. And she doesn't really hold authority on any one topic of thing that she discussed, because she's just constantly leeching off of different mindsets and positions, and then she's regurgitating them as if she's an authority, right? And I thought that when she was doing this about Black Americans, right, I think she really gained some of that, right-wing audience who, many of them, not all of them, have negative sentiments about Black people. They're running on stereotypes about Black people universally, because many of them really are a reflection of the things that they wish all Black people were. And so they need people like Candace Owens to co-sign these ideas and perceptions about Black people. And what they don't care about and what they don't realize is that when people like that project things like that onto mainstream audiences about Black people, it hurts Black people. The professional ones, the ones that don't meet those idealisms, they get bucketed into those ideas, even if they're not true. And I think a lot of times people like Candace Owens and some of these other Black-looking buck dancers on the Republican side, what they do is they try to catalog all the negative aspects of Black culture or Black people and serve them before these likely inferior white people who think that they are supreme, to make them feel better about their ideas and positions about their supremacy and the inferiority of other people. So Candace has definitely been weaponized And the Daily Wire actually were the ones who used her as a weapon to narrate Black people like that, her Jewish contingency that she's recently separated from. And since she's separated from her Jewish contingency, she is now talking about them. So Catholics, y'all better watch out with Candace Owens, because the minute one of y'all piss her off, she's going to start digging up all that deep and dark, dirty stuff about the Catholics. And boy, is there a lot of that as well. So she got y'all thinking about the Frankists and the Jews right now, because that's what y'all want to hear. That's what y'all need to hear. But don't piss that girl off, because she might have to come after y'all and y'all dark little secrets too, you know. But this is Candace Owens. I don't think she has a loyalty to anything or anyone but herself. And because she's social chameleons and bounce around in different echo chambers, right? She is seeking to be the authority of thought. And so the white supremacists are not very happy with this. And they're not good. I guess for them, you know, they don't want Candace to be a face for their movement. And one of the reasons why many of them do not want Candace to be a face for their movement is because she is not showing proper respect to one of their most, in their minds, modern white supremacist leaders, Nicholas J. Fuentes. And here's the thing. I saw Nick Fuentes support Candace Owens post the Daily Wire separation, but I believe that obviously he was supporting her based on, number one, who she got fired from and why she got fired, right? Because again, it was something dealing with the control or the coordinations of a certain group of people. And I'm not going to be ignorant, you know, but we know that they have a vendetta against the Jews. Let me just stop being coy. The Jews even know this, right? They have a vendetta against a certain segment of the Jews. Maybe Nick Fuentes, all of them. For Candace, she seems to be centering on a segment of them. And so I felt like he was kind of supportive of her when she kind of dealt with that. But I never thought of Candace Owens and Nick Fuentes being really deeply aligned. And I guess when you are leeching off of somebody else's talking points, you can't really align yourself too closely to them, because then it would be like if she did meet with Nick Fuentes and he started going back and forth, really challenging some of these conspiracies that she's been just spouting off, because again, she's a conversation leech. So anything that seems popular, she's going to leech off of. So if you got talking points in the echo chamber of the white nationalists, for example, and they have a huge following and audience and crowd that follows that train of thought, right? She's going to leech off of it. But the problem is she's not going to leech on it from the right lens, because she's not a white nationalist, right? She can align with white nationalists, but she can't really truly be them, right? Because, you know, again, you know, no matter how white her husband is, she's still a Black woman. And she's a Black woman trying to speak on white man's talking points, right? And they're all for her co-signing their talking points. I just don't think they want Candace leading their talking points. So
but
here's
yeah,
Nick Fuentes.
Look, you know, these people like Candace and Dave Smith, they're just not doing us any favors, you know? They're really not doing us any favors. This movement.
Candace and Dave Smith, these are non-Gentile white individuals. And I'm going to say it until the cows come home. White supremacy boils down to Gentile, non-Zionist Christian whites and Zionist Jews. This is what white supremacy boils down to in America. This is their conflict, and everybody else is a casualty of their supremacy wars. And this is just 100. And I'm not going to say all whites and all Jews are a part of this supremacy wars, But y'all got to know that y'all people are leading a lot of this, and y'all got to get your people in check. Get your people in check. This is, if y'all want America to be unified, some of these tribes need to get their people in check, right? But anyways, let's continue hearing Nick Fuentes talk about how he really don't want blacks and Jews in the white nationalist movement. Sounds like an oxymoron almost. The fact that you got some blacks and Jews that are actually in the white nationalist movement is just, is it being safe? Like, are you people being safe being in the white nationalist
movement? Which we
movement?
fought so hard for, that's America first, that's explicit. We've taken the sacrifices to say the whole message. These people do nothing for us.
Candace don't do anything for her.
They want to be edgy, but they don't want to tell the truth. They don't really want to take a hit. They don't want to take the sacrifice. They don't want to roll the dice.
See, I don't agree with him on that, because Candace Owens did sacrifice her job at the Daily Wire, right? You know, speaking in, you know, a manner that they didn't like. So I don't think that Nick is being truthful about that. And I do feel like there is an inch of possibly jealousy that Nick is not happy that, number one, Candace Owens leeches off of his talking points. And then two, she's completely monetized. So she's able to make money regurgitating his talking points. And if you're not a content creator and you're just a follower, a person in the audience, that's not going to resonate to you because you're tuning in. But when you're the person who's actually coming up with the thoughts, you know, you've sat there and you've pondered over something, and you've, you know, allowed this thought to kind of come into a belief system, and you find other people who have the same belief system, and you're kind of delivering certain content. And then you got somebody like Candace Owens that come in and leech. And because she's been propped up by the Jews anyways, and let's just keep it a buck, they did prop her up. She is like firmly established with having an audience at this point so that she could possibly leech off anything. But the white nationalists are like, nope, we need you off our team. We don't want you on our team if you can't salute and praise the real voice of this movement at this moment, Nick Fuentes. So the white supremacists want Candace Owens to take a backseat to Nick, stop leeching off of his talking points, and have him on her show so that he can be the authority of these white nationalist conversations and beliefs. And I think that they're probably having a problem with the fact that Candace Owens is becoming a primary face for white nationalist beliefs, which she kind of has been. You know, you really can't make this stuff up. Like, you just can't make this stuff up. But, you know, here's the thing. I don't like bad things happening to good people. And I don't think Candace Owens is a good person. So, you know, she has leached and chameleoned her way into all these echo chambers and thoughts. And I feel like her real Negro wake-up call is not going to come from the blacks or the Jews. It's going to come from the Nick Fuentes crowd. And, you know, some people may not see this writing on the wall. I see this writing on the wall. White nationalists do not want a black-looking woman leading their movements, and especially somebody who's leeching off of their talking points and off the talking points of their little god, Nick Fuentes. So Candace is going to get her Negro wake-up call. And I do kind of think there's some bot behavior going on too, where, you know, they're trying to sabotage Candace Owens. They're trying to find all little creative ways to sabotage Candace Owens. And the only way to really sabotage Candace Owens at this point in the game is to destroy her relationship with the white nationalist crowds. They got to break that bond that they have with Candace Owens, which, in a way, it's like, I don't understand why white nationalists can't give themselves credit. Like, I really don't know if they're just all racist, because how the hell do you lord over this Black woman like this? Like, I got to believe that racism isn't really the issue here, like, at all. Because, does anybody find it just remotely perplexing that so many white nationalist people have even cleaved on to Candace Owens in the first place? Like, and then they're demanding that Candace Owens has Nick Fuentes on her show. Like, it's kind of weird to me, because it's like white superiority, Black inferiority. But yet the white supremacists are demanding that Candace Owens has Nick Fuentes on her show. And like I said, I feel like that's a setup sort of bullying strategy, because they know that people who have had Nick Fuentes on their platforms, especially on YouTube, demonetization was right around the corner. Because when you're doing a live show, you can't dictate what happens, right? My kid runs up in here, he throws a ball at the top of my head. Y'all seeing all that in real time, right? You cannot really police what is going on in a live stream. So, I'm not saying that Nick Fuentes will ever be out to destroy Candace Owens. I think that Nick Fuentes truly wants to get on her platform so that he can sort of help her to frame some of the things that she's been saying in a way that may be more friendly to the white nationalist movements, because right now some of them feel like the way that she's articulating things about the Jews and all these conspiracies, that it actually makes them look bad and it makes them look ignorant. And so, that's up for debate between Nick Fuentes and Candace Owens, right? But I have seen Nick Fuentes on other platforms before, and some of those platforms still do exist today. But again, you can't control what somebody like Nick Fuentes is going to say on your platform. And I feel like there are people who are just looking for a reason to get a person like Candace Owens demonetized, because people can't stand her. Like, Candace Owens literally is that grifter that has literally increased her list of enemies, of groups of people. And it's not because she's dropping truth bombs. It's because she is saying sensational things for clicks that one group wants to hear about another group. So she's constantly playing groups of people in America against each other. So now, like today, she's talking about the Beyonce at the DNC and how she's going to speak on behalf of Black Americans. And it's like, did nobody ask you to do that? We've asked you not to do that. We don't like you. I don't understand why you feel compelled, now that the white supremacists are coming at you, telling you to stay in your lane and get out of our circles. Now you got to come on your mic again and talk about you speaking on behalf of Black Americans. And stop pivoting to us. Stop pivoting to Black Americans, Candace. We reject you. Most Black Americans, if they're real, they are not checking for Candace Owens. They reject even her whole presentation because they know how people like her rock. But the white supremacists are also rejecting Candace Owens right now, too. And it's going to be interesting to see how her whole contingency plays out. Because the one thing I would love to know is if Candace, I know she got advertisers on her show and stuff, but I'm wondering how much are these, quote, white nationalist type people actually supporting her, or if she's really just using her mouth to say what they want her to say, and they're not even really supporting her like that. I'm interested in seeing that part. But I don't think the white nationalists trust Candace Owens. I think that they recognize the social chameleon for what she is. And, again, Nick Fuentes, he's kind of calling her out, like, you want to be edgy, you want to say all these little things for clickbait, but you are hurting the white nationalist movement going in on Jews in the manner that you're going in, and you're not even accurate on your information. And like I said, I wanted to know, was she right? Was she not right about these rants that she was going on? And if somebody would come to the table and at least refute what she was saying about these Frankists and all this stuff like that, because honestly, I'm not interested in those types of rabbit holes. I'll leave that to the satanic demons that want to distract people from God. But I was just curious, people were talking about, oh, she said these things, but like, what was it about those things that were inaccurate or not accurate? And so Nick Fuentes is on the mic saying that some of the things that Candace Owens has said in recent statements is wrong, and that she hurts the white nationalist movement when she is going out on these tangents, spouting off inaccurate information, according to him. So I actually would like to see a debate between Candace Owens and Nick Fuentes, so that, they can kind of put some of their differences to bed on this particular topic, because there seems to be a differing of opinions as to, their ideological, beliefs, but they seem to be running in the same thought camp. So I think that it would be an advantage to Candace Owens's show to, at least off a YouTube platform, coordinate a debate with Nick Fuentes. I would love to see Nick Fuentes and Candace Owens hash out some of these little talking points, right? So that, we can get a clear idea of what really is, the thought coming out of that particular echo chamber. Because like I said, I like to hear all groups of people. I like to hear the struggle junkies. I like to hear the supremacists. I want to hear what everybody got to say about everything in America, because it helps me to understand these different thought groups, right? I'm sure the white nationalists feel the way they feel for a reason, right? I mean, just like Black people feel the way we feel for a reason. Everybody, every group, every tribe in America, we run around feeling the way we feel for a reason, right? Some of those reasons have to do with the collaboration and the coordination of people of all colors. They have been leveraged, and that's what people don't realize. Tribal superiority in America is just futile, because there's so many different tribes of people who are just screwing everybody up indiscriminately. They really are. So anyways, I hope that Candace can mend her relationship with her white nationalist audience, because I think, right now they're like, we don't want a blackface. We don't want a blackface. Hi, Aaron. How are you? They don't want a blackface in their white nationalist movement. And I think that, Nick Fuentes, and if they do have a blackface or Black looking faces, they'll settle for the Tate brothers. They're ambiguous, right? They're not deeply melanated like Candace Owens. So the white nationalists will settle for the Tate brothers, because at least they can confirm a half over there. And it happens to be one of their European halves. Candace looking dark as hell talking about these white supremacist talking points. Talking about the Jews. It's like, girl, shut your, Lord have mercy. I just don't get it. It's like if Uncle Ruckus had a niece, if Uncle Ruckus and Sambo had a niece, her name would be Candace Owens. It would be Candace Owens. If Clayton Bigsby had a niece, it'd be Candace Owens. I never thought in my lifetime I would actually meet a Black white supremacist type of person. But Satan is going to show us all kinds of folks in these last days. So we should not be surprised. So the white supremacists are really in support of Nick
Unwhite nigga
Fuentes.
going hard as fuck. Okay.
Okay. Let me stop. No, Nick Fuentes. Like, here's the thing about
But it's
Nick
true. I didn't have the privilege
zero
of being a black
like
woman.
people. I don't agree with people like Nick Fuentes
and
in terms of their position, but I respect people like Nick Fuentes for having a conviction and a position about something. I don't care if you hate me. If you have a conviction for hating me, I will respect your hate for me all the time, right? I don't like people who are bandwagon. I can't stand people who are just on the bandwagon of something because it looks popular, right? One thing I can say about people like Nick Fuentes and other people like him, at least they're operating with a level of conviction. Is the conviction that I agree with? No, but I respect people who have a conviction about something. If it's hateful, God be with you. God help you. We will all pray for you to get that hate out of your heart. But be an individual that operates individually and not in some herd of mentality or something that's popular. And I feel like people like Candace Owens, she leeches off of these different thought tanks, but it's really a grift. And this is the real this is the real meaning of grifting, when you jump onto echo chambers of thoughts that seem popular, and because you have a big platforms. How do I feel about Trump? The same way I feel about Kamala. I don't have any opinions about either one of those. I mean, look, America is always going to have the selection of the best of the worst. I think that any politician that covets power, unfortunately, in my opinion, they're going to be double talking demons, right? America is always going to have to choose the best of the worst. And for a lot of people, you got to figure out, what does that best of the worst look like for you? Like, suspend racial ideologies or herd mentality and just go based off of what you care about the most. And most Americans will tell you, we care about our money, our legacies, and not being taxed out of those things. And right now, there's been a lot of coordination to just short squeeze American people. And neither one of these politicians are really even addressing the reality. My whole thing is, you cannot solve the problem until you can it's like, what they call it, Alcoholics Anonymous or whatever. Like they said, the first step is admission. Like, you got to admit the problem exists. You got to identify what the problem is, admit it's a problem, admit it exists, right? Right. These politicians aren't talking about the roots of the problem, right? They're talking at people from a very ideological standpoint, right? But they're not talking about how these individuals who have been placed, empowered, or propped in front of the American people to select, how they have been a part of the problem. They have contributed to the party. Whether you're a Democrat, excuse me, or a Republican, excuse me, I think people need to recognize that from 1993 up until this point, both parties have added $31 trillion to the debt in America. Both parties. Obama added the most, but both of these parties. So this is just so I think that, to me, vote for the candidate that most acknowledges the problem. If you're inclined to vote for the candidate that most acknowledges the problem. Kamala Harris looks contradictory as hell right now. She looks crazy right now, talking about she's going to fix a problem that she has been a part of. And I thought that there was an interesting, Roland Martin posted a video, the Black Gatekeeper. Black people, Black media, they got their little gatekeepers, the Steve Harveys, the D.L. Hughley's, these Black people that bow to a Greek god, those black people, right? They got those. Roland Martin, right? Roland Martin had the nerve to check Spike Lee about posting a video talking about a conversation that he had with Kamala Harris. And in that conversation that Spike Lee had with Kamala Harris, he asked her, let me see if I can find a video, because he was explaining it. He said he asked Kamala Harris, like, essentially, like, you have been vice president. You've been in this position for 3 years. How is it that you are, here it is. How is it that you're talking about fixing something? And, you know, and how are you going to do this or that? And so Spike Lee said that Kamala Harris told him that she really did not have a lot of power and authority to do anything. I mean, think about that for a second. This is the second most powerful person in the nation, and she's telling Spike Lee that the reason why she couldn't address the border really was because she didn't have a lot of power and authority to do that. So again, when people talk about how Obama, they just had propped him to be a face of a job, but he really wasn't able to do the job, that's because he was a puppet. I mean, Obama wasn't going into office with his own agenda. He was going into office with some elites group of people's agenda that he was just being the face or the executioner of it. And so it's the same thing with Biden and Kamala Harris. It's like whoever is pulling the strings, right? Kamala Harris is just a face for it. And she literally said, and so when you think about it, I mean, I would say who's going to be the most leverageable puppet, Trump or Kamala Harris? It's going to be Kamala Harris all day. At least with Trump, you feel like you're going to get a fight against the establishment, right? Kamala Harris is not talking against the establishment. She's not, you know, campaigning to drain the swamp, right? Even though Trump did not drain the swamp. He didn't. I feel like in a way he kind of became part of it, but I'm gonna let me not let the piss off the little white supremacists about that. But he didn't drain the swamp at all. But at the same time, he went against the swamp enough that if I were saying that, you know, because to me, I don't think that people elect presidents, I elect warriors. Okay. I want somebody who has a warrior-esque mentality leading the nation. If I just have to be led by mankind, right? Trump has a warrior mentality. He has a winning mentality that is infused in him. And so I don't look at Trump as an individual that the world stage and even our local politicians at home can just sit there and punk. They can try to pump Trump all day and he still holds his own. Kamala Harris does not demonstrate that type of strength. She's a puppet. She operates like a puppet. And that's why really she was uncomfortable with most of those interviews doing that laughing thing, because it was like a nervous neck, like nobody told me what to say about this. She can't speak off of her own conviction about anything because that's not what she's paid for. I'd be curious to see what Kamala Harris's net worth is now versus before. I mean, I gotta believe that playing the puppet is like very profitable. I mean, you can increase that's why people go to Washington. Like if I ever coveted to go out there, I'd be going to make money. I mean, I'm not trying to be funny, but why serve the people when you can just hurry up and get them coins by selling them out? That's how a lot of these people operate. It's a terrible mindset, by the way. I'm just saying, being cynical here. But yeah, I do think that, you have to make your own decision, Aaron. And I think you got to make your decision based off of what is most important to you right now. What are your pressing concerns as an everyday person who may be a parent, a family head? What are your pressing concerns, and who is talking about that? I don't want to hear politicians talk about America that was back in the day, because America would never be that way. And I think it's kind of unkind and unloving for politicians these days to even sell an America like that again, because we weren't $35 trillion in debt when those glory years were taking place. We probably had a better handle on our spending, our innovation, our production, all of those things, and we weren't $35 trillion in debt. So I think that these politicians need to stop selling Americans this illusion of a dream that will never, ever, 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 ever happen again. It just will not. We will never have those days again. Trump is not Jesus. Kamala is not Jesus. And, unfortunately, this nation, through these central banks and all these other people who have learned how to manipulate world currencies and the nation's currency, they screwed us. They literally screwed future generations of Americans out of a possibility of anything outside of being people who are just getting their asses up every day to work to pay bills. They're not going to own anything. It's not going to be easy to own anything. Only certain segments of people are going to really be able to own things and buy things. I look at the neighborhood in Detroit that I lived in about 10 years ago. Middle class, working Black automotive neighborhood. Very well kept, despite what some of these white supremacists and their little shields want to talk about Black people, working Black class people. Those neighborhoods are well maintained, so maintained that they've been gentrified the hell out of. Now all you see is rainbow flags in these neighborhoods because all the Black people have been getting bought out of these neighborhoods forever. And I tell Black people, have more respect for your legacy. Sometimes you cannot put a price on your legacy. And this is what so many Black people, we don't plan to maintain our legacies so somebody can, excuse me, it's the change of the weather, so I know I'm getting sick, but somebody can dangle so much money in front of certain people's faces and they would just give away their legacy. And then the property value doubles, and triples. And then you're feeling like, why did I do that? Right? I should have just held on because you didn't respect your family's legacy. Right? And this is what I tell people. Legacy planning really goes beyond who is going to get what. You really should trust the kids that, is going to be able to lead that charge on that, to respect the name that the family was building, right? If you started from the bottom, you built this legacy of wealth, you gave your kids opportunities, protect that name of your family. That's why generational wealth typically ends up stopping at the next generations, because they really weren't taught the meaning of legacy, and how sometimes money is not worth the legacy that has been built for you. A lot of people out here in these streets selling out their legacies. But what else is on my radar? I figured I'd just jump on this morning and do a live stream. They are really propping Kamala Harris. I almost feel like the media and what I'm seeing is artificial, because I never see anything about Trump anymore. I mean, the guy had an assassination attempt on his life, and any type of Trump stuff literally is shadow banned from my feeds, because I've been looking for updates on this assassination attempt. I cannot find it. I thought that would be a major story that kind of had random updates for a while, but I don't see, I feel like a lot of that is being suppressed. And I do think that, Trump's alignment with RFK was a smart strategic move. I thought he was going to choose RFK as a vice presidential pick. I think that would have been a better choice for Trump. I really don't understand who advises Trump if there was some glory hole aspect of him not choosing RFK as his VP. But Trump would be doing much better right now. And it wouldn't even be a question of who, and they couldn't even say it was neck and neck if he would have just picked RFK as his VP. Like, no stab to JD Vance. He's weird to me. I think he's a Manchurian candidate. But I just, I don't care for JD Vance. I think that there's been too much soundbite. And I give people the respect to change their mind, because I wasn't really a huge fan. I never had a problem with Donald Trump. I wasn't a fan of political Donald Trump in the beginning. Now I'm okay with political Donald Trump, because honestly, he's better than some of these establishment people on so many different levels. But I just feel like RFK would have just signed, sealed, delivered it for Trump. He wouldn't even have to work that hard, because RFK, he really did have a huge segment of that Bernie Sanders contingency. He had a lot of the liberal independents already. So RFK made more sense to me than JD Vance. And I'm just kind of wondering how they got to that decision with JD Vance versus RFK being Trump's vice president. Honestly, because I'm not really inspired to really support either one of these candidates. But if Trump would have had a Trump or Kennedy ticket, I think that would have been very, very attractive. If we were just going to do two white men on the Trump side, it should have been a Kennedy. It should have been a Kennedy. It should have been a Kennedy. RFK should be the vice president pick for Trump, in my opinion. And he screwed up on that. I don't know why he did that. I can only imagine that RFK said some comments that were heavily censored immediately. But I was able to see the video before it got censored. And he was talking about, that plan Emic thing, right? And how there was a lot of pre-organization before that, and how there might have been even some genetic manipulations to that, so that that particular thing, didn't impact a certain segment or group. He was talking about some interesting studies that he found, and they censored the hell out of RFK for a while after that. Matter of fact, he got shadow banned, either he was still going and we didn't know it, but he got shadow banned the hell out of. And I was surprised. I'm like, I hope they don't kill that man, because he was really going in on some of that scientific stuff, manipulation stuff, and he was pointing some fingers. And I think that was probably why maybe Trump didn't, because he did have to, get the anti-Semitic label, right? Because he was saying some things that toed the line of what people did not want to hear of Trump. All right, so I did a video yesterday, and this, like I said, this is an unpopular opinion, but this is the last time that the Democrats are going to be able to weaponize the Central Park 5. Now, no disrespect to those brothers at all. I think, being wrongfully accused and having to spend, a bulk of your life in jail for something that you did not do, I wouldn't wish that on anybody, right? I don't hate any individual on this earth that much to wish something like that upon them. But keeping it a buck, and I'm going to say it again, and I said this I said this when they were weaponizing the Central Park 5 with When They See Us, right? That the Democrats love using these. They did it with Roots. I've been talking about, if LinkedIn didn't censor my content or my page, you have all the juicy tea, because I'm repeating this stuff at this point, right? The Democrats love weaponizing Black struggle, Black idealism, keeping the struggle alive for Black people during political processes, right? And to do that, they will get their cinematic people to create all kinds of deep, shocking videos about the Black experience to project on to America so that obviously Black people can feel inflamed about their ongoing disenfranchisement in America, which a lot of times is sponsored by the Democrats. You know, it's like Black America, I swear, it's like it's a Stockholm syndrome with some of our people. You know, it's like, you know, people, it's like I said, he beats her, he gives her flowers. He beats her, he gives her flowers. And everybody on the outside, they're like, why is she staying with this guy, right? But they don't realize what's happening in the home where, yeah, he's beating the hell out of her, but then he's like really being nice and he's even playing the victim to her. So she's perplexed, you know what I mean? That's some of the Black Black people, right? They're committed to the Black struggle. They have to keep it alive. And the Democrats love that about them. They're like, we love Black people who want to keep the struggle alive, right? And we will help you keep the struggle alive by creating more struggle for you and saying that we're your friends. That's the relationship of Black Americans and Democrats. And, you know, there's people who are shilling for the Democrats hard and they claim that they're independents, right? They're literally telling people to vote for this person. It's all we got. It's like Amazing Lucas come to the front of congregation, right? Because you are going real hard for the Democrats right now. And, you know, no disrespect. I mean, I don't agree with, you know, everything that anybody says, but this dude is going hard, you know, to get Kamala Harris in there, you know, for whatever reason. And it's really, and I hate it when during these political cycles, people are always targeting Black people. It's like, why they got to target Black people so hard? I know we're a large voter base, but really a lot of these people don't say too much that Black people want to hear. And beyond reparations, right? You know, I want, like, as a Black American person, I want to know that significant amount of labor and trade jobs are going to be brought back to this nation, because for the most part, we are a laborer nation, right? And when you take all the laborer jobs out and you offset the good ones, right? Because, I mean, I've worked in the automotive sector. I know what they offset. I know what they've been offsetting over there in these different countries, right? You know, cheaper production over there, right? Cheaper production over there, right? So you don't have to pay Americans as much. So you keep everything at a lower cost. But what does that cost your own nation? And there have been way too many people who have been doing this legally at the encouragement and benefit of individuals and even the federal government. They don't care about the people. They don't care about the people. If the Democrats or the Republicans cared about the people, NAFTA would have never existed. And while Americans are being distracted with this person and that person and this person and that person, NAFTA is unforgivable. It should be the unforgivable sin that every single American of all colors, we should have a consensus on. NAFTA destroyed the American working class, and it continues to do it. And now when you have the age of AI, there's going to be nothing but displacement. And they're going to lie about these things, just like they lied about the jobs. I've been saying this for over a year, that the jobs reports are lies. I mean, the writing was on the wall in so many different ways, and you do have to truly be intelligent how to connect multiple moving parts to understand what I'm talking about. We've been in a high interest rate environment for forever now. Think about how many companies such an environment would actually short squeeze. They're not hiring people. And now they got over 1 million jobs that they're like, oh, you know, guys, guess what? We lied about that. Sorry. You kind of over-reported these jobs, to make the Biden administration look good. So the Biden-Harris administration literally has been sitting up here lying to people's faces, playing in people's faces, talking about we're only going to tax the rich people who make over, 400,000. Meanwhile, every person that I know of just whatever income bracket owed taxes for 2023. So they lied. They are using all kinds of creative ways to short squeeze people. And I wouldn't trust any of these people. Just pray to God. At this point, I don't feel like at this point people don't have anything to lose, just trusting in God. Because, hell, a lot of people, they got all this trust in things that they can see, and it doesn't really work out well for them. So my thing is, hey, take a gamble with something that you can't see. I can't see the wind, but I know it exists. So, hey, believe in God. Trust in God. You have nothing to lose. I'm pulling the Trump card at this point. You have nothing to lose believing in the Almighty Yahuwah and submitting to the sacrifice of his son, Yahusha. You don't. You don't. These people on earth, these demons on earth, these spawns, these human spawns of Satan, they don't have your best interest in mind. No matter how good they talk, a lot of these people are double talking demons, including Trump. So you guys pick the best of the worst. All right, that's kind of what's on the table for Americans at this point. We are choosing the best of the worst, and I pray for everybody. Here it is. This is Spike Lee talking about his conversation with Kamala Harris. Now, remember, there was a gentleman post the DNC, I believe, who called out the Democrats for their hypocrisy, because he's like, the one thing about Kamala Harris is she's making all these promises that she's going to do this and do that, but she's been in office for over 3 years. What the hell have you been doing for the last 3 years? You were supposed to be the border czar. We have seen nothing but millions of people flood into this nation. What were you really czaring, right? And so Spike Lee kind of brought it on home. He just said, just my thoughts.
As you see me do every day. Real quick, I want to talk about the DNC. I feel like the DNC has been going amazing, but I also feel like...
And he's a Democrat.
Tonight, Kamala Harris has a pretty difficult job, right? And it's interesting because the Republican correspondent that's been doing the roundup after the DNC has ended, he asked the question that I kind of asked Kamala when we had our second meeting.
So Spike Lee has met with Kamala Harris twice, and I'm not going to say Kamala Harris 2 times, right? And in these meetings, he addressed a very similar thought to what that correspondent who was doing the DNC wrap-up called out is, how can Kamala Harris be trusted to lead this nation? And she's been the second most powerful person in this nation, and shit has just been hitting the fan ever since this administration has taken office.
You know, the fact that she's in office right now, she's in the White House right now. And the guy...
This is Spike Lee, a Democrat.
What makes y'all believe that she's going to get this stuff done if she becomes president and she's already in the House? And it's a tricky question because I asked Kamala basically the same thing, right?
Now he asked her personally.
And I asked her, like, as the vice president, why they don't let her talk when, Biden seems like he needs or he needed someone to speak up for him. I thought that's what the role of the vice president was.
So Spike Lee asked Kamala Harris why, basically when it was very clear that Joe Biden was on a decline, why didn't they step you up then to basically be the mouthpiece for Joe Biden? And that's a very valid point, right? Because when you look at sort of the last couple of years, right, Kamala Harris, she actually had this stint where she was out of sight, out of mind, right? Jill Biden was going over and doing diplomatic stuff overseas, not Kamala Harris. Like, go back and look at all this Ukraine stuff and all that stuff diplomatically. Jill Biden was doing a lot of functions that Kamala Harris should have been doing as vice president, right? And this is the point that Spike Lee is making in this conversation, is he's connecting, this conversation that he had with Kamala Harris to with this CNN correspondent said, and it really does make sense to me.
Was to help the president. And basically, she kind of let me know that her hands was tied, that they didn't really allow her to be a voice like that in that space. And tonight, I don't know if she's gonna, I want to see how she.
So Spike Lee is saying, that he had a conversation with Kamala Harris, and he's saying in so many words, she basically told him that, when he asked her, why didn't they allow you to step up when Biden looked like he was on a decline, and isn't that supposed to be your job? And she was basically like, her hands were tied, right? Because they didn't really allow her. Listen to what he's saying. They didn't really allow her to do the job.
And tonight, I don't know if she's gonna. She kind of let me know that her hands was tied. That they didn't really allow her to be a voice like that in that space. And tonight, I don't know if she's gonna. I want to see how she. If she even touches on this, because if she doesn't touch on it, that's the question that I feel like the people that have mixed decisions about voting for her. This is one of the questions. This is the top question that they have.
I mean, and he's right. Kamala Harris is eventually going to have to address what the hell has been going on in the Biden administration for this long, where you haven't really been doing anything. And how can we trust you to be the face of this country? You feel like you are entitled to have a promotion when we have not seen anything tangible coming from you. It seemed like after her cackling bits and people trolling her about the cackling, it seemed like the Democrats tried to hide Kamala Harris. Like, am I the only one who feel like there was a nice little stint of time where Kamala Harris was like completely in the shadows because they were embarrassed by her so much because of her delivery in those interviews and that little cackling Kamala, thing that they had going on? Like, they were embarrassed by Kamala Harris to the point where they hid her. They hid her. I mean, they had Jill Biden all over the damn place. I was like wondering, like, why is Joe Biden's wife doing so much stuff? Like, why is she the proxy for her husband when there's a whole vice president somewhere waiting to laugh on a world stage? Like, it's kind of perplexing to me. I didn't understand it at all. But if y'all go back, Jill Biden was doing a lot of diplomatic things that Kamala Harris should have been doing. They had her talking to the Black women about struggles and abortions and all, and they wanted her on that stuff. They didn't even have her on the real diplomatic stuff. But here Roland Martin, one of the Black gatekeepers, talking about, I just woke up from a nap and I see Jermaine Dupri. I'm sorry, not Spike Lee. It was Jermaine Dupri. My bad. I'm sorry. Them brothers look alike to me. I'm sorry. They just did. But it was Jermaine Dupri. In my brain, I thought it was Spike Lee. But Jermaine Dupri was the one that had the conversation with Kamala Harris. And he's supposedly claiming that Jermaine Dupri's getting cooked for this video. I don't understand why anybody would be cooking Jermaine Dupri about what he said in that video, because he was really perplexed on how Kamala Harris was going to sell herself as being a problem solver when she's been in a very high-ranking office, solving no problems, but being involved with the creation of a lot of problems that that has really hurt a lot of Americans. Crises, honestly, again, if you ever want to figure out how Western Rome fell, because they did fall first, the West Rome fell first, right? They had open borders. And what they decided to do was, they called them barbarians, not immigrants, but they decided to let these people come in, and they're like, we're just going to integrate them into Roman culture. Well, the thing is about these immigrants is they had zero loyalty for Rome. And so as they infiltrated the different ranks in the governments and stuff, they basically destroyed the country from within. So that's how America will eventually fall the same, because there's just too many psyops, black ops, gatekeepers, all these people, white ops, all of them. This country is screwed. But I just thought it was interesting that people like Roland Martin, these little funny looking people, can just get on the mic thinking that they can be the arbitrators of Black thoughts and opinions. I cannot stand these people. Like, thank God they're older and they're kind of perishing off, because I do feel like next generation of Black people actually do have a chance, because we are not passing on these generational idealisms. We may have to deal with a little fragment of those Brule descendants, but for the most part, they are a dying breed in the Black community in America, and I'm very, very thankful for that. Like, thankful to that. So I feel like there's a new dawn for Black American thought that is on the rise, and I am all for it. We are tired of these struggle junkies keeping themselves relevant by keeping the struggle alive. So Roland Martin, you can go kick rocks. Jermaine Dupri was absolutely right in questioning how the hell Kamala Harris is going to do anything for this country when she has failed as a vice president. And if she does not address that, then I don't think that anybody should feel compelled to vote for her. She needs to reconcile how you have contributed either passively or actively to the failures of this country and this nation in the last 3.5 years. And if you can't do that, right, then you need to sit your chameleon ass down somewhere and maybe go to China and try to be Chinese. I don't know. Because you gotta address it, Kamala Harris. You got to address it. What have you been doing? What have you been doing all this time, Kamala Harris? Why should we trust you to go to the next level when we have not seen you get any tokens on the level that you're at right now? Matter of fact, you have admitted to people that you can't even do your job. And this is the perplexing thing about being a puppet in American politics. I am pretty sure that the president of the United States is a puppet. I don't think the president of the United States has been running the show in America for a very long time. I do believe that there was a point in American history where the elected president, the elected officials, they were working in harmony for the people. But I think I'm going to say around maybe 1914, America just started going off the deep end, and I just feel like we're just slowly underwater. And I think that's what Fabian socialists really do, because I think this nation is being ran by Fabian socialist type people. They short squeeze nations, and they're very patient. So they'll if it takes decades to accomplish what they need to accomplish, that's what they'll do. And so they're at the final phase in America. And that's why I say America is never going to be the same America again, no matter how much illusion they want to sell to people. And Americans are going to, figure it out sooner than later. The smart ones already figure it out. Like, we're never going back. When Democrats say we're never going back, I don't look at that as like a social phrase. I say that as I really look at that as an economical, American dream phrase. We're never going back to the American dream because it's about to be a nightmare. And they created the nightmare, the perfect storm for the nightmare. The American dream is dead. And Democrats' little slogan of "we're never going back" has nothing to do with race and division and none of that shit. It has everything to do with the economics of America. We're never going back to those things. So for those of you who ask Donald Trump, will my grandkids have the type of life that I had? Donald Trump should be honest with these people and tell him, no, sir, they won't. They will be paying for the debt that administrations for decades have accumulated. Just be real with people. Just be real with people. Just be real. Your grandkids will not have the same life that you lived. Your grandkids will not have the same hopes and dreams that you did. And this is not me being pessimistic. This is me looking at the pattern of things and being as real as I possibly can to the people who tune into this content. Your grandkids are not going to live the same life that you did. Only a few people's grandkids will ever be able to even have remotely the shadow of the life that you live, because that's how screwed up this nation has become, and there is no going back to that. So the Democrats are right. We're not going back. But I think their slogan really should be that we can't go back. We can't go back because we have screwed this nation over so much economically that it's impossible to go back to the illusion of the American dream that so many people have. These immigrants are flocking over to America thinking that they really have hopes and chances. They don't. This nation is not producing. If the jobs report told you anything, this nation is not producing. We don't have robust industries anymore because these short squeezing, usury ass people have sold out the legacies all over the world. I mean, I think that these people who say, I'm anti-globalist. It's like, honey, you have no idea how globalist this nation has been for a very long time. You exist in globalism. And globalism eventually falls apart. And this is what we're seeing right now with the whole economic powers sort of rising, where you have your Eastern powers, who are coalescing to be direct threats, economic threats to the Western powers. And, most people aren't thinking about those things, right? When other nations have figured out a way to hedge against the United States sanctions and say, screw your dollar, I feel like people don't really understand what things like that really mean. America will go to war to protect the dollar. America will kill millions of people to protect the dollars, and we have. But we're getting very limited on who we can do that to these days, because the only nations that we can really do that to, right, to like kind of get some level of balance are in these Eastern power alliances. And that's why I kind of felt like immigration was more than people trying to get votes. It was really a way, I think, mass immigration, it was a way to increase the military. A lot of those are military age men. And you think about it, Americans, for the most part, they're not flocking to go serve in the U.S. Army these days, right? you know, and even if, you know, they don't believe in it. I feel like there's a lot of people who don't believe in being a part of the United States Army. But these immigrants, right, they'll be a part of the Army because they want citizenship. And if you are bartering citizenship for service, right, which America does, right, you know, they have something that they could fight for a little bit more, right? So immigrants are actually, you know, I, I don't know. It's a catch-22 here with this mass immigration thing, right? Because if you got people who are not interested in enlisting in their military, and then you got these military-age men from these other nations, but then it's like the vetting, it's just a big mess. It's just a big mess. But I do believe that the military, building the military, was another portion of the mass immigration too, because, you know, again, if it ever get to the point, you know, where the United States do have to go to war with some of these Eastern nation powers, and then they actually have to put boots on the ground, I suppose it's always good to have an army of non-Americans to go on those grounds and risk their lives. Hey, I'm pretty sure this is how a lot of these people are thinking. Like, hey, let's just get a bunch of immigrants and we'll send them overseas and we'll try to protect our Americans like that. I mean, Americans, we are pretty protected people. I guess there is a privilege being American. Anyways, these little white supremacists, they definitely on Candace Owens says, Candace needs to find a lane to be in. Get out the white supremacist lane, girl. They don't want you there. They do not want you there. And if you're going to be in their lane, then you're just going to have to submit to, you're going to have to give their Lord, Nick Fuentes, some love. Give Lord Nick Fuentes and the white supremacist circle some love, Candace. Just have the man on an X space or something so that you can appease all these people that think that your black behind need to have Nick Fuentes on your show so that you guys can debate about and talk about how terrible Zionists are. Lord, take the wheel. Lord, just take the wheel. But anyways, you guys, have a wonderful, wonderful day. I always catch the crazy on X. I'm sick of Drake. He's another one of those little plants, black looking folks, placating as black. One thing about Kamala Harris is, you know, I just wish she would just be authentically real, right? Because I'm sure that every single Indian person in her family does not call her Kamala. And this is like, I worked at an Indian company, Tata, one of the Tata group companies. And I like working with Indian people. They're sweet people, love them, just love them, love them, love them, love them. Indian people are some of the sweetest people on earth, you know? And I don't think Indian people would pronounce Kamala Harris's name Kamala. And I just don't understand why she just can't embrace what she was raised around. You know what I mean? I think Ann Coulter tried to call out Drake, Barack Obama, and Mariah Carey out one time because she was upset because they were raised by white mothers, but she was perplexed as to why they had this affinity for Black culture and their Black side. You know what I mean? And I feel like some people, if they're not exposed to, if they're biracial and they're not exposed to like one side or the other, they tend to long to actually maybe have some exposure to the other side. But like with Kamala Harris, is like, and I think this is a confusion for a lot of people, and I don't want to blame Kamala Harris for this, right? Because there are white individuals in this nation that believe that all Black looking people in America are Black Americans. Like they literally, I don't care, y'all all the N-word to us. And it's like, okay, well then if that's the case, you guys are all Jews to us. Like if we just gonna play these games, because let's just face it, we can go run somebody's bloodline, y'all cousins that hate each other. So stop playing with us when it comes to these immigrants and conflating them onto Black American culture. And again, the delineation between Black looking people in America is always going to boil down to generations and legacies that stem from chattel slavery in America. Kamala Harris and any other Jamaicans, they don't have that experience. That's why Jamaicans are not Black. And even Jamaicans will say this. And this is the ignorance of some people in America. It's like they literally do a good job of just blanketing and bucketing all these people into these race groups when really, people break themselves down into cultural groups. All right. We're talking about culture. That's why Black culture and Jamaican culture are different. Right? We are very infused with, like, we're like a fusion, if you will. Kamala, authentic. Here's the thing. She could be authentically herself, right? She could be one of those people who, like, I'm going to immerse myself into the Black culture, just like Rachel Dolezal, and I'm going to get my Black people card. But I find that today, Black Americans, we're not giving the Black card out as freely as we used to. And I'm glad that we're not, because there are a lot of Black looking people who can pose as Black people, and they can't stand Black Americans. They hate us. They're jealous of us because for a variety of different reasons. You know what I mean? Because I will say this, despite what any other Black American would want to argue, if you compare Black Americans, our poorest Black Americans, to some of these Black looking people, immigrant people, and where they come from, our poorest Black people are living better than some of their richest people or middle class people. So I can understand why some of these immigrant looking folks, Black folks, come over here like, you little entitled assholes, you just want everything. It's like, no, we do want more. We do want more. And I think, I'm not trying to be Black supremacist about this, but as I assess things in America and these thought tanks, these echo tanks, hell yeah, Black people are owed something. And the only people that don't believe that Black people are owed something are the people who have specialized in demonizing Black people all this time through colorful ways. And y'all know how y'all people have demonized Black people through all the nepotism and some of these laws and regulations that short squeeze Black communities. And y'all know that any of these policies will hit these at-risk communities beyond Black the hardest. So, yeah, I don't trust any of these people. And I don't encourage anybody else to trust them either. But I'm the kind of person, I do like to entertain what the different thought groups are saying. And, hell, even a broken clock is right twice a day, right? So, anyways, the other thing that I thought was weird, and again, this is where, these people who say they're God, faith, and family, right? Did Republicans not know that Tim Walz had an autistic son before they started going in on that guy? Like, did they do the research to say, okay, this is a very, extreme reaction? And when I saw Tim Walz's son's reaction, I thought it was, a little exaggerated too. But then when they said, hey, he has a special condition, it made more sense to me. And even Ann Coulter had to come back. I think she even apologized for her comments about Tim Walz's son. But why do people got to be so damn mean, though? Like, I mean, it doesn't make you a masculine man, trolling somebody who is different than you. I don't understand this. Like, why do people think that you are superior when by trolling somebody who's lesser or who may have some kind of deficiency? I don't get that. They were going in on that man's son, and I'm so glad that Tim Walz actually clapped back at Ann Coulter, and he ethered her. He really did ether her. I don't like Tim Walz. I think he's a kind of weird dude. Right. But he ethered her on that point when she was talking about his son was weird. He was like, why is your fiance always leaving you? Like, is Ann Coulter married? Like, nobody has decided to marry Ann Coulter at all. She's blonde. She should be every white nationalist dream. What prevents a white man from taking up that white woman and marrying her? Oh, she talks too much. She talked too much. She got strong opinions. Women with strong opinions don't work in these conservative circles. That's why I don't even understand how Candace Owens survived. Oh, I do understand how Candace Owens survived. She survived because, obviously these white nationalist people, some of them, they're also professionals, right? So you got your personal, professional, right? There's certain things they can't say because the same Jews that they love hating, they got to work with them, right? So they can't be outward saying some of the stuff that a person like Candace Owens is saying. So they need her. The white nationalists kind of do need Candace Owens, right? And so she's always going to have support on the end. But on the other side, right, you got that segment of the white nationalists who are like, we don't need Candace Owens. She's not white. She's skewing our talking points and she's making us look like idiots. Candace has to go. So we will see what happens with Candace Owens because she's pissing off the white supremacists. So, I mean, where else can she go? Where else can she go? I mean, you can't go to black people. She keep trying to talk for black people, but we asked her not to, and she's going to insist on doing it. And I feel like we're just going to keep roasting her until she just don't do that, right? She's going to keep going after the Jews, and she's not going to be happy until they, set her up some kind of way to get truly sabotaged, right? The white supremacists are questioning, like, why are you still in Nick Fuentes' talking points, presenting them as if you're the authority, and you won't even have Nick on to have a conversation about the talking points that you have leached off of him about. So they're not happy with her right now. So hopefully, like I said, the Catholics better not piss off Candace, because I just don't think that girl has any loyalty to anything. And she's ready to pivot into an echo chamber really quickly. So flat earthers, y'all better watch out too, because she's on y'all talking points too. She's on y'all talking points too. She's a conversational leech. And I think Nick Fuentes is like, look, if we're going to have a black woman talking on our white supremacist talking points, she has to fall in line. And unfortunately, Candace has gone rogue, right? Nick is the leader of the anti-Zionist movement, Candace, okay? And you need to understand that. And this is what his other little compadres are trying to tell you in so many different words. That's why when you was like, where's all this coming from? Nick Fuentes and stuff, like, they're telling you to fall in line, Candace. You're not falling in line. and they need you to do that, right? So they are going to hammer her on Nick Fuentes because she is stealing his talking points. Like I said, I feel like I want to say she is. They believe that she's stealing his talking points, and I believe them because she steals everybody's talking points. So anyways, you guys have a wonderful, wonderful morning. I'm taking it easy. I'm really taking it easy. This is Sabbath day, so I get to chill, relax, and not think about anything, have conversations, and really talk about anything spiritual today. I do that. I weave it in subtly, but a lot of times when I'm talking about the distractions of Satan's world, it's like, you see, I don't even got my head covered. So I'm not going to talk about too much stuff religious today. But I will say that white supremacy is a sin. White supremacy is satanic. Much like Talmudic supremacy, Jewish supremacy, any type of tribal supremacy is satanic. Satan needs supremacy to keep people divided, distracted, right? And it's an evil thing. So if you are somebody who's claiming to be a person of God and you have supremacist mindsets, ask God to take the hate out of your heart. If you're a Catholic that believes that God gave his kingdom to the church, pray to God to help you and heal you from your apostasy. Okay? Because a lot of your supremacy is rooted in satanic infiltration of your religion. Okay? A lot of Catholics don't know. Some of them probably got an inkling of it, but a lot of Catholics don't realize that Catholicism was infiltrated by Satanism in Rome, much like Judaism was infiltrated by Satanism in Babylon, right? And I can have a whole conversation about how Judaism and the Abrahamic faith was defiled before they were even exiled in Babylon. And you can blame not so wise King Solomon for that. King Solomon is the father of paganism for the Abrahamic faith, and he did not die in the favor of the God of Abraham. He died a pagan, and Israel was full of paganism by the end of Solomon's reign. So much real history to dig into, but unfortunately, when the Jews were exiled to Babylon, you saw the rise of the Pharisees, right? And the Sanhedrin and the Sadducees. And these demonic men, possibly known as rabbis today, they defiled the Abrahamic faith. They infused it with the laws of man. And that's why the scribes and the Pharisees and Yahusha, or Jesus, they were beefed out so much, right? They had perverted the word of God, and Jesus was calling them out on that. And then what did the Catholics do? They did the same damn thing with their papal order. So Satan is all up in all these faiths. Ain't no sense in these fleshly men having supremacy over nothing, because indiscriminately, everybody will be judged according to their deeds and what they went along with. So anyways, you guys have a wonderful, wonderful day. Keep your prayers up. Thanks to everybody who came in, chimed in, peeped in, or whatnot. Just keep your prayers up. I mean, it's best to operate with common sense, pragmatism. I mean, I find that a little cynicism is acceptable, but just try not to be inflammatory with what you're saying. Have a conviction about yourself. And when you do have conviction about what you're saying, you don't have to inflame the emotions of other people. Common sense is what it is. And when you're running on common sense thinking and thoughts, you do not have to inflame people. There's no need to inflame people at all, because you're running on a superior way of thinking, the most supreme way of thinking. And unfortunately, common sense is not so common. So for those of you who have common sense, please like, share, and subscribe this content, and let's create a common sense tribe. Bye.